Dear Auntie Lorelei, could you please do a video on staying organized as a witch? You really seem to have it all together. I am so glad that it seems that way. The glamoury is working. For reals though, I do sort of have the personal motto of do all the things, as you know. And I do manage to get a lot done. I'll share some of the tips and tricks that I use to keep myself organized. But as far as having it together, I really think my spotty video uploading over the course of the whole last year is evidence that is a thin veneer, my friends. I only have it partially together at best. In fact, you know how Hermione uses that time turner in book 3 and like by the end of the year she totally loses it and like screams at Trelawney and calls her an old fraud and like walks out of her class, slaps Draco Malfoy and is scream crying at everybody? I'm not saying that's me, but I'm Lorelei Black and this is Blade and Broom. Let's just jump straight into that sweet, sweet witchy goodness. So as we talk about being organized witches who do all the things, I'll just say that I have a strong personal drive to be prolific and productive. We could have like a whole therapy session together about how that is both good and bad. We won't, but we could. If you're having some level of shame for not being as prolific or productive as you think you should be, or as you think that somebody else is, I want you to let yourself off the hook for that just a little bit. To borrow a phrase that I've heard, do not should all over yourself. And let's agree to just like adopt this truth. We'll work on it at least. My value as a human is not based on my achievements. Say it again with me. My worth as a human is not based on my achievements. Guess there was just a little therapy in there for us both after all. Still want those tips and tricks from Auntie Lorelei about how to be productive and do all the things, even though I'm a flawed human? Fair enough. Just bear in mind that I have absolutely not managed to perfect the formula for achieving a happy work-life balance. I tend to be a workaholic, and you ought to take my advice in this area with a grain of salt, the size of one of those Himalayan salt lamps. Also, some of these tips are like blaringly mundane, but I assert that they're woven into my craft as well. Magic, after all, is any act of will that produces change. So calendar and organization magic are magic. Tip number 1, use an actual planner. Whether it's an app, a suite of apps, a bullet journal, one of those $1 pocket calendars that you can get in the bargain bin at Walmart, whatever, or even something as fancy as like a Franklin Covey binder with all of the branded pages. Whatever works for you, as long as you have some place to keep track of your projects, your commitments, that kind of thing. It's also a great place to write down reminders, to-do lists, goals. I actually use, let's call it a Frankenstein Coven planner. It has some like of the branded pages in it, but it also has some pages that I made myself, as well as divider tabs and pockets and things that I added to it, all inside of a zippered binder that I bought online. I also designed some planner pages that coordinate with the Grimoire pages that are downloadable from my Etsy shop, and you can get both of those in the Blade and Broom Etsy shop, if that's something that you're interested in. I did that when several clients told me that they were using my BOS pages or Grimoire pages in their binders just by like printing them at half size. You can get 2 on a sheet that way. You know, if you go into your print settings, and then change the size of the sheets. There's also a ton of apps that you can use on your phone if that's more convenient for you. We live in a super techie era, but those things, like anything, are only useful if you use them. And I don't necessarily go to my phone for organizational apps. The way my brain works, it helps me to physically write something down, because then I have the memory, the sense memory of having done that. And it helps like solidify in my brain the visual of seeing it, and I don't get that from an app. But your brain may work differently. In fact, I'm going to assume it does. So figure out what makes sense for you and what you will actually use, whether that's something more complicated or less complicated, or more techie, less techie, more analog, whatever. And that actually brings me to tip number 2, which is to be honest with yourself. This tip is multifaceted. So touching back to tip number 1, be honest about what works for you and what doesn't work for you in terms of the actual like planning materials that you're using, the devices or the planners. I love a to-do list. Love a to-do list, but I'm blind to like anything that's on my refrigerator. Like I just don't see it anymore. So a to-do list on my refrigerator is just gonna sit there and have the ink fade in the sunlight over time, because I'm not gonna be checking things off from there. That is a level of honesty and insight I have had to accept about myself. So for me, I keep the to-do lists in my planner on the daily pages. There's 2 pages for each day. And so the left side tends to be to-do list and appointment calendar, and the right side is more like logging important phone calls, information, mileage, that kind of stuff. And I have, we'll call it several to-do lists in my Google Drive for longer term projects, or like bigger, more complicated projects that have lots of parts, because I can pull in docs and Excel sheets or sheets, Google Sheets, and that kind of thing to like help me organize the flow of those. Like, not even kidding, I probably have 6 Google Sheets with writing projects. It's a lot. It's a lot. You have to experiment to be able to figure out what you like and what works for you. Just be honest about that process and the tools and like insights that you're figuring out about yourself. Don't force yourself to use something that your brain just can't use. The other aspect of being honest with yourself is more about being honest about the commitments that you make and your availability, both in terms of the spoons that you have to do that work and your time commitment. I too am a people pleaser and tend to say yes to lots of projects, and then I scramble to figure out how I'm going to make them all work as it comes down to crunch time. But we do damage to our magical will when we say that we will do something and then aren't able to fulfill that commitment. We lose faith in ourselves, and others lose faith in us too when we say, I will, and then we don't. So no is also a magical word. Use it. Tip number 3, SMART goals apply to magical endeavors too. Whether you're talking about a magical intention that you're wanting to work toward, or a course of study that you're undertaking, making your goals specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based will help you to actually achieve those goals. If your goal is very big and complicated, has lots of steps, like for instance, reaching the next degree in your craft tradition by the end of the year and a day of study that you want to do it in, then break them down into smaller goals and still keep them smart. You don't have to get super formal with it. I mean, you can if you want to. If you are like me and you also like to-do lists and spreadsheets and bullet journal pages, then go nuts. But really, just saying, I'm going to do X reasonable thing by X date is enough of a SMART goal, right? It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Tip number 4, do not get stuck in the planning and scheming phase. Sometimes we can use the organization process as a way to psych ourselves out of actually doing the thing. No, I don't do that. That's as true for our craft practice as it is in any other area of our lives. I have so much air and fire in my chart, y'all. Like, you can see it in my complexion. Trust me, I get way into the planning and scheming and organizing stages. It goes beyond brainstorming and into like firestorm level. But we got to get our boots on the ground and do the things, like actually do the work, even if it's crap. And sometimes it is junk, the project, not us. My worth is not measured by my achievements. My worth is not measured by my achievements. We're all learning to be okay with not always being the best, with not always succeeding, without not always doing great. It's a learning process. Failing at something means that you did something, that you tried something, that you gave it a shot, and that is pretty magical. Tip number 5, enlist a buddy. Whether you see this other person as a coach, a teammate, or even a competitor. Yeah, I don't know where the sports metaphor came from, but here it is. Having someone else in the game with you, I'm just gonna own it, can be very motivating, inspiring, educational, and collaborative. And it helps keep you accountable. In your witchcraft practice, that might be a study group, a partner, or a mentor of some kind. It might even be students that you're teaching, which is a great way to learn. Or it could just be like another witchy friend. As a little bonus today, I've included some witchy organizational tools in the description box below, including those planner pages that I made with the discount code BBYT plan, all smushed together. So the letters BB, Blade and Broom, YT, YouTube, plan. If you use that promo code at checkout on Etsy, you're going to get a discount. And that's all I have to say about that for today. So let's get talking about witchy organizational skills down in the comments below. And if you found today's chat useful, inspiring, thought-provoking, please bless me with the magic of the like button and tell your witchy friends that good stuff is happening over here at Blade and Broom. I've got more resources for you down in the description box, including links to my witchcraft course and to the Thread app. Can't wait until next week to get into more witchy goodness. Then I'll see you in the next video. It's over there. It's over there. It's over there. It's over there. I'll see you over there, friends.